And then a disturbing report by Dr. Kevin Stillwagon, a retired airline pilot and immunology expert, confirmed there was a 40% increase in pilots dying early. He is here along with Nurse Kimberly Overton to discuss that story on the RFK Jr. fireworks in Congress. Why is RFK Jr. getting such incredible pushback from both Democrats and Republicans? It's all next on Viewpoint this Sunday. Privilege to be with you, my fellow Americans. Welcome back into the broadcast. I'm going to take a sharp turn right now, and man, did you see the RFK fireworks? I would suggest they would be. They were quite something here. It was must-see. If there was ever a hearing, this was it. And RFK was pretty lit. He was armed. He was armed. He knew these clowns were going to come after him, and they did. And I say that when I say clowns, I say that affectionately, of course. You know that, friends. From the left and the right, by the way, which they're all clowns. They're in both parties, to be sure. Anyways, let's get started here. And I want to welcome on for the first time on the broadcast here. Dr. Kevin Stillwagon is here. He's a retired chiropractor, a former Delta Airlines captain, he was forced out. He was one of these cats who was forced out, retirement early, get the hell out of here, because he didn't want to play along with their charades. The mask mandate, vaccine mandate, march in line, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And he pushed against it. He's a vice president of USFreedomFlyers.org, and he's surely been outspoken, to be sure. And speaking about outspoken, is one of my favorite people, is Nurse Kimberly Overton is here. She's registered nurse entrepreneur, the founder of Nurse Freedom Network, and has been doing some incredible work out there all the way through. It's good to have both of you here on the broadcast here. Let's start off before I jump into RFK. That's going to really be some fireworks here in moments here. I want to talk about these some of these reports I've been seeing and some of the things that you have been very, very outspoken on, my friend. And I'm speaking to Dr. Kevin Stillwagon here. And let me read this here, what I see on this report here. Since 2021, and correct me on any of this, Kevin, if I've stepped over here, but since 21, the deaths of younger airline pilots have risen markedly. Long-term disabilities have surged, and near-miss incidents at airports have skyrocketed. I've seen in a post from you, a disturbing report by yourself, retired airline pilot, immunology expert. Mountain evidence points to the COVID-19 vaccinations that airlines acting under pressure from U.S. governments, mandated or otherwise coerced their cockpit, cabin, and ground crews into taking. When that was happening, I have to tell you, Doc, I was really, really concerned that this was going to happen in the way that it did. You're saying now there was a 40% increase in pilots dying early, and you have some other pretty startling numbers here. Tell us how bad you think it is or what the impact has been.
Yeah, well, initially I started looking into this because there were some reports that came out that were untrue, stating that pilot deaths overall had skyrocketed by over 1,000%. And I thought to myself, well, that's absolutely not true because I've been in the industry long enough to know that that wasn't true. So I started digging around and getting my own data. And what I found was that there was an absolute 40% increase of the incidence of pilots dying early. And by early, I mean prior to the normal retirement age of 65. Prior to 2021, the incidence of that was about 14% a year, and then it increased by 40%, and it's still elevated. And what's most concerning to me now is reading the obituaries of these pilots that have passed away. And I'm seeing more and more incidences of what's described as rapid onset cancer out of nowhere, which is basically turbo cancers.
Yeah, we've been talking that a lot with on our network on Dr. McCullough and I, and also some other great Mackes, Dr. Mackes, William Mackes has been
Yes.
on quite a bit, and others. It's been a real problem. Let me ask you a moment here. Did you? I know you pushed back against this mask charade, and surely I did as well. But what about the vaccine? Did you take the vaccine personally?
No, I've never had a vaccine of any kind ever in my entire life. And
Wow.
that's kind of why I'm an expert on immunology. I decided to take a very deep dive
Okay.
on vaccine dangers and immunology very early in my career,
Okay.
and actually wrote a book about it in 1984 called The Silent Killers. So I've been way ahead
Wow.
of the
Wow.
curve, way
I
ahead
didn't
of
know that. So
yeah,
you've been steadfast on this then.
absolutely, I have been.
All right, so that's important to know. So you didn't just come lately yesterday, Johnny come lately.
No.
You've been on this program and calling it out, and it really is, as you heard from the hearings, and we'll talk about that in a moment with RFK in just moments here. But I will say some of that came out there where it's like I forget the number, Kimberly, and you may remember it. I don't know, but it used to be a handful of shots you'd get when we were growing up as little brats, whatever. And I think it's like 60 something now. He said, Kimberly, you remember that? It's
Oh, I
something
believe
like
it's up to 94
that.
after
94.
Kevin will probably know this number better than I will, but I believe it's up to 94 when we added the COVID. It was around 72 as we came into the
Good
COVID
golly,
vaccine
because
rollout.
how do you
Yeah.
survive with all that crap in you? I mean, Doc, with you being an immunology expert, I mean, and this is kind of part of the pushback. We're putting this stuff into the kids where some of the stuff it's never an issue. Yet this is where I think RFK is suspect that some of the stuff is causing all this autism and all this other stuff. Everybody's got an acronym attached to their name in today's society. I mean, they've all got these little you're this, you're that, they're labeled. Everybody's being labeled, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, the problem is you're overloading the immune systems of children.
Yeah.
And, as Kimberly said, the numbers of these shots have just escalated, and the numbers that she quoted are accurate. And so the problem is, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has made this very clear, is there's never been any accurate placebo-controlled trials to determine the safety of these things, even individually. And the problem is we're loading these kids up with multiple shots at a time. And that's never been looked at. So we got a real problem here.
Yeah, yeah. I want to take a turn here in a sec here. I just want to ask you one last question, Doc, about this pilot and stuff here. When we talk about deaths have risen, these problems have risen, sickness, things like this within the community, and like you say, you watch the obituaries, you see all this stuff happening. Now, then people would say, well, why haven't there been more incidents specifically? And I guess this kind of stuff, I would guess, you can't predict when somebody is going to die or when this is going to have a hit on their body or turbo cancer or something else. They may not be 30, 35,000 feet up at the moment here, but the risk and danger of that is, I'm just guessing, is probably pretty serious. Are we seeing any correction course within all of this within the industry? And are you getting more comfortable back to that? Or is it still just a complete, well, you can't say train wreck or plane wreck, maybe I should say.
Well, it's a complete disaster right now, Malcolm, because there used to be an FAA database that kept track of pilot incapacitations. It was called the Incapacitation Data Registry, which has been active since 1993. In the year 2022, the FAA decided to discontinue that database. So right now, there is no standardized, centralized FAA database for any type of trend analysis or safety assurance that would be tied to pilot incapacitations. That is unacceptable.
Hmm.
This absolutely must change.
Yeah. So do you have when you get up on a plane anymore, do you have deep concerns with that, or are you pretty comfortable? Okay. Should people be worried? I'm asking.
Well, flying is still safe because pilots are always trained for the incapacitation of the other pilot. So, whatever happens in the cockpit, even if one pilot dies, the other pilot is perfectly capable of diverting the aircraft and landing it safely and getting it to the gate.
Okay.
It's always been that way. The
All right.
problem that we're going to have is if both pilots go incapacitated at the same time, the chances of that happening are infinitesimally small. I don't see that ever happening. However, there are seizure events that are tied to mRNA injections. Seizure events are something different. This could be a problem if one of the pilots has a what's called a tonic seizure. Well, they would put an unexpected flight control input into the aircraft that the other pilot may not be able to overcome quick enough to avoid a disaster. So that's what I'm most concerned about at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's talk here about HHS Secretary. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Man, I wonder some days when I see what he's going through, I wonder if he says to himself when he wakes up in the morning, why did I do this? Why did I take this on with Trump? It is quite fascinating the heat that he's under here. And on Thursday, he defended what's happened with the CDC is one big thing. He said, and I quote, "We are the sickest country. That's why we have to fire people at the CDC. They did not do their job. This was their job to keep us healthy." Kimberly, talk about that event, that hearing. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't agree with RFK on every stance that he has. I will say that out of the gate, but I agree with this one. This should not be a political stance at all. This is a moral imperative when we talk about protecting children from harm and from the vaccines alone. But when we talk about he's going to be halting the funding of the child mutilation. Those were his words, and I absolutely agree with him. When we talk about what's happening with the puberty blockers, and we talk about what's happening with these gender affirming surgeries, so this is just a step in the right direction as far as holding these people accountable. Um, again, I can't understand how this is a question. These children are vulnerable. They don't have their brains are not developed yet to make these types of decisions. Their parents are clearly mentally ill. I just can't understand. So I wanted to say that I applaud this move. Like I said, I don't applaud every decision that he makes.
Mhm.
But this one I am 100% in
All right.
agreement with. I think we
When
can
you
all agree
look
with that.
when you look at the kind of policy change and accountability that RFK Jr. and Trump were seeking within this health establishment, there was, I would guess, you both probably would agree with this point. There was always going to be the need for regime change within these institutions. I mean, we all felt that coming in. We knew it was, the deep state, the government bureaucracies, the establishment is having fits. When you look at that hearing, you see the pushback, what was happening. Doc, I know you listened or watched that full thing as well, because you told me you did as well, as I caught a good part of it myself here. What's your sense? I mean, it seems to be pretty obvious, maybe, but why is RFK getting such incredible pushback from both sides, Democrats and Republicans? Is it because he's rocking the canoe or pulling the carpet out from underneath him, or do these people not believe this kind of change is necessary within this establishment?
I think the problem, Malcolm, is more of a almost a religious belief in what vaccines have done in the past.
Mhm.
If you really look at the track record, you'll see that these vaccines that supposedly wiped out all of these contagious diseases, the vaccines came on much later than the actual drop of these incidents of disease happened. And we can easily tie the drop in these diseases to things like improved sanitation, the a better water supply, the Food and Drug Administration putting restrictions on how food is shipped and stored. Things of that nature have been the major impact, not these shots. And unfortunately, people have got the idea that they need to, quote, follow the science. And what the science says is that if you inject these products into your body, you will get an antibody. Well, that's absolutely true. You will get an antibody, and people have tied the presence of an antibody to protection. And there is actually no protection in these serum antibodies that are deep inside of your body created by these shots. The real protection against these infectious diseases is on the epithelial barrier. That's what separates the inside of you from the outside. And it has very little to do with antibodies. It's mostly cellular.
Okay.
And what people haven't realized is that these shots that are called vaccines can actually destroy that cellular protection.
Mm.
That
Wow.
truly does keep us protected from these infectious diseases.
And what you say there is very dangerous because once that's destroyed, you're as vulnerable as you could possibly be when that happens. All right. I guess the big question that I am wondering is, will RFK, does he have the temperament and the thick skin to be able to push through this? Kimberly, knowing him as you've been following his career and what have you, when you see him make a statement like this, we are ending gain of function research, child mutilation, and reducing animal testing. We are addressing cell phone use in schools, excessive screen time for youth, the lack of nutrition education in our medical schools, sickle cell anemia, hepatitis C, the East Palestine chemical spill, many, many others, he says. And he ends it this way here, Kimberly. As my father once said, progress is a nice word, but change is its motivator, and change has its enemies. That's why we need new blood. All right. So, with that said, do you see him being successful in this endeavor? There's been some pretty big pushback on both sides of the aisle. Once the temperature usually rises in these cases, a lot of people either give up, take their toys and go home, or the whole system blows up. What do you think happens here?
I believe he's going to stay the course and he's going to be successful. I think he's already made such bold moves as far as making changes with ASIP, and those relationships within the people that sit on these boards are the very people that sit on the boards of pharmaceutical companies. The relationships are
Big
so
pharma.
incestuous. They are so incestuous, and it's so in your face, the conflict of interest. Like, how is this even allowed? If this were, any other industry, we would never, this would
Now,
never be.
hold on. Think about. I got to jump in here a minute, Kimberly. You're so good to bring that point up, and you know what? I have to laugh. I remember RFK talking to Elizabeth Warren. I don't know if y'all seen that, and said she's made like it was pretty close to $1 million or many millions, whatever it was, 900. Maybe it was I don't know how much it was. It was a big number, and he threw it out there on the floor, and she kept talking over him to try to distract. Boy, that was quite something here. He was pretty armed. He was throwing it back there. What do you think, Doc? Do you think he can hold the line here, and will there be success, or do you see him buckling?
He's not going to buckle. He prayed for this. He got down on his knees and asked for this.
Mm.
And I'm sure he prays on a daily basis for the power and the strength to get through this.
Mhm.
And I'm sure he will. There's something else that Elizabeth Warren said yesterday. She said that she was concerned that RFK Jr. was limiting people's access to getting these COVID shots.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, what she doesn't understand is that he's limiting access for their own protection. I have no problem with people getting as many shots as they want. It's a free country.
Well, he's not mandating it. That's the point. They're
Right,
not
but
like pushing it, mandate, and then making sure forcing you to take it even in the school system. It's coming back to parental rights, isn't it, Doc?
yeah, but even beyond that, the product has to be safe.
Huh. What,
Clearly,
what a novel
clearly,
approach. What a novel approach. Come
yeah,
on, Doc, get
clearly,
with it.
yeah,
Uh,
clearly these mRNA shots are not safe.
Safe and
And
effective, you mean? They're not safe and effective?
well, they're definitely not safe.
Yeah.
And, the first step is going to be limiting the shots, which he has already done. And the
Yeah.
second step is going to be pulling the shots from the market.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see that happen here within the next few weeks. I honestly
Wow. Well,
believe
that's
that.
going to be interesting if that does. And we got to leave it right there.